Hello everyone, welcome back to another GIS mathematics lecture video. And in this lecture video I want to talk about three things. I want to talk about the idea of a negative angle, the idea of multiple rotations, and then something that links these things together with the previous content, the idea of a coterminal angle. So I want to start off by just giving us a description of this diagram here. All right, so this is our initial side, this black line here. This is our terminal side, this blue line here. So if our traditional way of measuring an angle, right, we start at the initial side, we go all the way around till we hit the terminal side. I'm just going to tell you that this is a measurement of 315 degrees, or if we put that in radians, that's 7 pi over 4. Okay, that's the measure of this angle. So let's talk about what we mean when we say a negative angle. Right, and I want to first, before we define negative angle, right, before I define negative angle, let's just take a look at this diagram and think for a second. Is there another angle that we could have drawn? Well, there is, right? There is this angle right here. Right, this is another angle. We have an initial side that is on the x-axis, and we have a terminal side, but in this case we went the opposite direction. Right, and we haven't really explicitly discussed this. It's just sort of been implied in all the stuff that we've done so far, and it's probably been implied in the way that you've looked at angles before, was the idea that you start at the initial side and you went counterclockwise to get to the terminal side. Right? And that just kind of made sense. That's just the way you did things. But that's not the only way to do things, right? You can start at the initial side and you can go down. You can go clockwise to get to the terminal side. And if you do this, right, this angle right here is going to be negative 45 degrees. And it's negative because we went the other way. And this right here, this is an example of a negative angle. Right, so negative angle is an angle created when you go clockwise. Right, clockwise from the initial side. Okay, right? When you go clockwise from the initial side, you get the negative angle. So hopefully that made sense. Let's talk about this idea of multiple rotations. Multiple rotations, I think, is a little bit harder to wrap your head around. And I'm going to use the example of skateboarding because I think that's a pretty good example. Right? On a skateboard, you can think about doing, a 360 or a 720, right? That's when you spin the skateboard around in a circle, right? When you do a 720, what you're actually doing is a form of multiple rotations, where if this is the side of your skateboard at the initial first step, right, you're straight, you flip it, it spins, right? It spins one time, that's 360. Then you spin it again, right? That's 720. We've gone 720 degrees. We've done 2 rotations. That's the idea of multiple rotations, right? So multiple rotations is the idea that you can actually go more than once around an angle. Right, multiple rotations occur. I can give myself a little bit more space. When you go past the terminal side one or more times. So let that sink in for a second. Right? Multiple rotations occur when you go past the terminal side one or more times. And again, think about that idea of a 720 on a skateboard or a snowboard, right? You're rotating 360 degrees, which is when the initial side and the terminal side end up back together the first time. But then you keep going, right? You do an additional 360 degrees, right? That's a multiple rotation because you're going around that angle more than once, or one or more times. So hopefully that makes sense. The nice thing is for GIS and remote sensing, we very rarely deal with these concepts. We typically stick with a standard 0 to 360 or 0 to 2 pi. But anyway, these two things have an additional connection, and I'm going to try and give us a little bit of room underneath to talk about the idea of a coterminal angle. Right, coterminal angle, as the name implies, right? We have the term co, which means shared, terminal, which refers to the terminal side. Right, shared terminal side. So a coterminal angle is literally just two angles that share a terminal side. Right? So in this case, right, going 315 degrees in the counterclockwise direction got us from this initial side to this terminal side. But so did going from here, going clockwise, negative 45 degrees. So in this case, 315 degrees and negative 45 degrees are coterminal. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's go through that one more time, right? Coterminal means that they share the same terminal side. So if we start here and we go 315 degrees, we get to the terminal side. If we start here and we go negative 45 degrees, we also get to the same terminal side. So 315 degrees and negative 45 degrees are coterminal. Okay? Now, we can also have coterminal angles working with multiple rotations. Right? We could go 315 degrees. We could also go 360 degrees, right? Passing up that terminal side once, and then go an additional 315 degrees and end up at the terminal side, right? We could have done, I'm going to try and do this in red here, right? We could have just as easily done that, right? So you've gone 316 or 360 degrees plus 315 degrees. So I'm going to sort of write down here to show you, right? 315 degrees is coterminal with negative 45 degrees is coterminal with 360 degrees plus 315 degrees, right? So if we do the math on that, that's 675 degrees, right? Hopefully that makes sense. 315, negative 45, 675 are all coterminal because you travel that angle with multiple rotations in some cases, and you end up at the same terminal side. Hopefully that makes sense. And again, we could go another time, right? We could go 720 plus 315. That would also be coterminal, right? We can do any number of multiple rotations. But the idea, and we could even go backwards, right? We could start here and we could go this way around, right? There are a lot of different ways that you can end up at the same terminal side. But basically, any way you go, as long as you end up at the same terminal side, all of those different angles you made, even if they're multiple rotations or negative multiple rotations, right? Those are all coterminal. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, I know there's a lot here, and in GIS particular, a lot of this isn't as relevant, but it's important to just understand the concepts. So if any of this didn't make sense, please go back, rewatch the parts you're confused about, and as always, please reach out. Thank you.